Welcome, my lords, to the Well-Earned Comforts podcast. I'm Sam.
I'm Seth.
Thank you for joining us on the Walls of Isengard as we explore the many works of Tolkien and discuss life. We're glad to have you as part of the fellowship, as there's no telling where we'll be swept off to. And if you are anywhere in the United States now, you are being swept off by the polarizing blizzards and cold winter storms that have hit just about every state, I think, in the United States. But here in Kentucky, it is cold. It is -7, and we have at least a couple inches of snow on the ground. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think most of the U.S. feels like the Fellowship trying to get up Carathras and being told no by the mountain.
Yeah, I'm
It's
hearing some foul voices on the air for sure.
yeah. I mean, I showed Sam a video of this weather, like the storm coming in, and Lake Michigan is a freaking hero. It's protecting us up here. If you watch like a time lapse of the weather of the storm coming in, Lake Michigan just kind of protects the whole lower peninsula. I mean, it's still cold. It's going to get down to like 8 degrees, and we're probably going to get 8 to 10 inches of snow. But compared to even what our family and friends back home in Denver are dealing with, it's nothing.
Yeah, for
It's,
sure.
and it's colder in Kentucky than it is out here by a decent margin.
Yeah, people don't know what to do with themselves. They are looting and rioting and no, I'm just kidding, but it is pretty crazy. Everyone I've heard talk to are just like, no, I'm staying home. I'm not going out on the roads or anything like that. And so far, we have lost power at least 4 times this morning. And so, I mean, it is what's 8:20 in the morning? No, it's 7:45 in the morning. So we have, we still have plenty of cold day to go through, but hopefully I'm on my phone's hotspot, so hopefully that will get us through this podcast. But as far as babbling like Butterbur, anything else you'd like to add for your little update?
Well, we had mom and dad in town for the last few days. It was a lot of fun. We went down to Frankenmuth. Mom was able to go to Bronner's and get a couple of things. She actually bought Evelyn a stocking,
Oh,
and it,
cool.
it meant a lot to her. She really wanted to buy Evelyn a stocking. And
Mm.
Bronner's, they what do you call it? Embroidery it with her
Yeah,
name for free once you buy it. So
that's cool.
Evelyn has a beautiful stocking with her name embroidered in it that Grammy gave her. So I'm
Oh,
sure that'll mean a lot to her as she grows old enough to understand that. But we had a really good time with them out here, and I feel awful because they left yesterday right before the storm hit to catch their flight a couple hours away in Detroit. And right when they got there, their flight got canceled, and then they got rescheduled for 5 p.m. tonight.
jeez.
Um, so I mean, with the storm and how far away it is, that'd be, 5 hours of driving, give or take, to
Right.
drive here and back. And that's, assuming not horrible weather and traffic. So
Mm-hmm. Right.
they're unfortunately hanging out at a hotel in Detroit just a couple hours away instead of staying with us another night, which, would have obviously been just fine with us. So,
Definitely. Shoot, man, that's rough.
yeah, it's kind of frustrating, but I know they had a good time and it meant a lot to them to get to see Evelyn and interact with her.
Mhm.
She was a little bit like stranger danger at first, like for the first 10
Yeah.
minutes, and then after that, like she loved being with mom and dad.
Oh,
So it made my heart feel full to see that.
yeah. That's really cool. That's awesome. I know that's something we always talked about, like just making sure that mom and dad are able to come out now that we've moved away, like see whatever additions to our family come along, and especially dad,
Right.
getting to share with him those awesome moments. That's really neat.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I you could tell how much it meant to them too. So I'm glad
Yeah,
it was able to work out that way.
it's cool. Well, for us, we have Ariel's parents in town now. They came in yesterday, so they came in just before all the craziness,
Okay.
which is perfect. Yeah, they drove in from Colorado, so they took 3 days. They brought their 2 dogs with them, and so we've got 3 dogs in the house now. And it was pretty funny to watch them all meet together last night and run around. And Pippin, of course, is trying to assert his dominance, like this is my house, and but
I don't
they're
remember
having
them
fun.
having I don't remember them having two dogs.
They just got one. So Einstein, the
Okay.
little Maltese Shih Tzu
Yeah.
thing, they got another one almost just like him. He's a little bigger,
Okay.
but
So
pretty
yeah,
much the same.
Pippin's having his way with him.
Yes. Yeah, Pippin is the bigger, stouter, scarier dog for sure. But yeah, they're having fun. But yeah, they're upstairs sleeping right now, and I'm trying not to be too loud to wake them up.
Sure.
And my wife is Ariel sleeping in the other room with Pippin, and so. But yeah, it's been good. The biggest like life thing for us is we finally got everything cleared for fostering, and we should start probably on the 29th or the
Okay.
1st, depending on like the students. We've already gotten a referral for one of the students, and we accepted, assuming he is still available. And so we haven't heard back if he will be placed with us because we wanted to wait until Ariel's family is gone. We didn't want to like say, "Hey, welcome to Kentucky," and now we have a foster kid, a teenage foster kid that's going to do everything with us. But yeah, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, mom and dad mentioned a little bit about that. Said that you guys are waiting until, your in-laws left, and so I guess we'll see how it turns out, but I'm rooting for you guys.
Yeah, thank you. It should be pretty awesome. Yeah, other than that, I don't think we have a whole lot going on. So let's jump into Riddles in the Dark. A little fun segment here. I'm going to go ahead and open up my 3-in-1. This is my 50th anniversary edition
Ooh,
of
that's a
Lord of the
beautiful
Rings.
book.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
That's actually an awesome one. 50th anniversary edition.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find a page to stump Seth with.
Good luck.
Okay, this is going to be way too easy.
Okay,
But
well,
so be it, he said. So be it, he said. Somebody else said. So they keep, yeah. Uh, he copied him. But not with your death, only person, with the death also of your father and all of your people, whom it is your part to protect now that your brother is gone.
I mean, yeah, that sounds like Denethor talking to Faramir.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I was like,
you wish
this
now that
is
our
pretty
places
easy.
had been switched, that I had
That's
died and Boromir
exactly,
had lived.
that's literally the
Yeah,
next, yeah,
yeah,
the
I'm
next
sure
one.
it is. Yeah.
Yes, I wish that indeed, said Denethor, for Boromir was loyal to me and no wizard's pupil. He would have remembered his father's need and would not have squandered what fortunes gave. He would have brought me a mighty gift.
Should I return, father? Think differently of me. Um,
What a jerk of a dad, Denethor.
yeah,
There's a
not a
little redemption
fan.
in his story, but it's yeah, he's a butt. So well
All
done.
right.
Wait. What chapter? What
Oh,
book?
I don't know the names of the chapters. That's probably book 5,
hmm
technically. Do I know the chapter? No. No, I don't.
The Siege of Gondor.
Is it really?
Yeah, I
That's
think it's
all
like
one
right at the
chapter? That
beginning. It's a
Tolkien
long
does have
chapter.
he does have long chapters. Like a lot happens in his chapters, at least
Yeah.
in Lord of the Rings.
hmm Yeah, not so much in what we're about to get into.
There's no way you're gonna get the person who says this, but
Oh boy.
it's a
All
kind
right.
it's kind of a fun one. All right, you
Well,
ready?
let's try it out. Let's try it out. Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, here we go. They're both cracked, said blank. Leastways, Bilbo was cracked, and Frodo's cracking.
Oh, come on. That's hold on. Samwise Gamgee's, is it the Gaffer?
Oh, it's around that conversation, but that's not
So
who's talking.
it's not the Gaffer, is it? It's not Fatty Bulger. It's that
No.
guy who's just he's a jerk to everybody. I forget his name. You're right. It's Fellowship of the Ring.
Uh-huh.
The chapter, I guess, would be An Unexpected Party.
Shadow of the Past, actually.
Oh, okay. Shadow of the Past. I don't know his name.
It's Ted Sandyman.
Ah, yeah, Sandyman. Yeah, yeah. He's
Yeah,
a jerk.
yeah, he is.
He's always yeah gossiping about other people, and
And then at the end of the Return of the King, he dug up,
he's
the party tree and everything.
yeah, that's right.
That's
Mm.
good though. I mean, you got you knew the location and everything. You just
Well,
couldn't quite get.
I thought the Gaffer because that's how it is in the movie.
Okay.
Because yeah, when they're at the the Green Dragon. I assume that's the inn or like the bar that they're at. He was
Yeah, I would
saying
have.
that young Mr. Frodo here, here's Kraken, and Frodo's like proud of it, Gaffer. Cheers, something
Okay,
like that. So
that's fair, and that's another cool way that Peter Jackson like tied in something from the books and adapted
mhm.
it in a way that paid homage to it in the movie, but wasn't
Yeah, wasn't
perfectly lined up.
definitely. No, that's good. Well, very good. We have, before we jump into the meat and potatoes of our podcast, we have a new section called Tidings of the Fellowship, or Tidings from the Fellowship, rather. And so this is where we will read anyone's thoughts or questions or just any feedback we've gotten from the people listening. So this first little excerpt is from Andrew, one of our listeners. He emailed us at our wecpodcast@gmail.com email. Nobody's done the Molden Shower email, just so you know.
That's good. Happy to hear that.
So yes, this is from Andrew Schrump. I asked and he said it's cool if I share his name on the podcast, but he says, "Hello. I have read this book once before by reading along." That he's referring to Children of Hurin. I've read
Yep.
this book once before by reading along with the audiobook read by Christopher Lee. I didn't know it was going to be a tragedy when I started and was surprised the story didn't pick up as much at first in the first bunches of pages. The story is a good, solid one, though, and I enjoy reading Tolkien's works, not only Lord of the Rings, but in the same world. His works always make me smile, and I want to close my eyes and just picture myself in the world and experiencing it and not just reading it. I love that. That is
Yeah.
absolutely, Andrew. Absolutely. And then he ends his little message with saying, "I'm excited to be following along with you too through this story."
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Andrew. I completely agree with the shutting my eyes and experiencing it, not just reading it. That's for me why I do the audiobooks a lot of times. I mean,
Mm,
there will be times where I just go lay down in bed, not with the, hope of going to sleep, but I'll just put on the book and shut my eyes and just what you're saying right there, Andrew, really strikes a chord with me. I get that tenfold.
yeah. Yeah, I absolutely love that, Andrew. That's beautiful. I can't tell you how many times I've fallen asleep to listening to the books or even like reading them, just stopping for a second, closing my eyes, picturing myself in Lothlorien or
Sure.
Khazad-dûm, some of these places that you just you want to go to so badly because it
Yeah.
seems at the time better than what you're sitting in sometimes.
There's definitely times like that. But thanks for
Yeah.
sharing that, Andrew. We're excited to have you along, and hopefully this can help bring some new insights to a story that you've got a little experience with.
And yes, it is a tragedy.
Yes, it is. I think we've made that pretty clear at this point, but
Yeah,
we'll see.
yeah,
I'm sure it'll
definitely.
still catch some people off guard. And then we decided we have two Apple reviews. So I feel like we should be able to double that by next podcast, and
Oh,
get all the way
easy.
up
Come
to
on, guys.
four. And I
Come
mean,
on.
just well, to be fair, I think we have five-star reviews, which is awesome.
Yeah,
But only
thank you.
two uh reviews with actual words. So I'll read the first one here, from Belko Walker, which Sam mentioned is our cousin Caleb, who shout out did a fantastic job with our intro and outro music.
Yeah.
Um, he's the one that came up with that. So our cousin Caleb said, "A fun podcast which does a great job of explaining the lore. It's fun to hear the brotherly banter." And he would know he has two brothers
Yes,
himself.
yeah.
So I'm sure, kind of makes him feel like he's joking around with his brothers too.
Yeah,
So yeah, we love you, Caleb. Miss you and the rest of the family out there.
absolutely. Shout out Linville
And
crew.
then not sure who this one is, but I figured I should have the joy of reading this. It's
You
from
should. You really should.
Stefan the Dum Dum, which makes me think that it's maybe Steven's burner account. Um, Steven's our middle brother, so maybe it's his burner account. I'm not sure. It says, "Really love the podcast and the banter. I will say this though, that Seth guy seems really quite arrogant." Well, Stefan the Dum Dum, you are correct.
I
I
love
love it
that.
though. I love
That's
it.
funny. And see people like just leave a review. You can leave a review and say literally anything. It won't phase us. Like, as you've seen, we have a myriad of different thoughts about us, and we're perfectly fine with that.
Oh yeah, and if you have constructive criticism, feel free to
Yeah,
let it at us or throw it at us or whatever the saying is.
let us have it.
Let us have it, sure.
Yeah.
I was trying to combine like three of them, and it just did not come out.
Well, yeah, please continue to rate and comment on the podcast and review it so that we can continue to enjoy that and share that with you guys. But yeah, thank you again, Andrew, for sending in that uh, beautiful, beautiful little excerpt there. Appreciate it and hope you enjoy listening. So let's jump into the meat and potatoes of the podcast. Today's lore. We're doing chapters 2 and 3 of Children of Hurin. And I'll just start off with, because chapter 2, the name of the chapter is The Battle of Unnumbered Tears, or the Nirnath Arnoediad. Did I get it?
Yeah, yeah. Nicely done.
Yeah. All right.
Nicely done.
The Battle of Unnumbered Tears, but I just put the very first thing. Lots of people died. It is a very depressing chapter. It's a really cool chapter because we get to see. I mean, Tolkien uses like battle strategies and different plans, and you kind of get a glimpse onto what both powers are thinking and like how to defeat one another. Morgoth and Maedhros and Fingon and Turgon, all these guys. So we'll get into that, but it is pretty cool. So to set the stage, Maedhros, one of the sons of Fëanor, decided he was going to gather as many people as he could, and he was going to attack Morgoth in his fortress of Angband because he has the Silmarils and he wants to get back to him and take those Silmarils and also just destroy this evil being. So he puts together a bunch of people. Some of the other sons of Fëanor join him as well. And then we also have the House of Hador. That's Hurin and Huor and all their folk. And I think Haldir is the guy with the men of Brethil, right? So
Yep,
he's
the
got
Forest of Brethil. Yep.
the woodsman. And so Tolkien says that many songs are yet sung about this battle, but it would take more than a man's life to hear all the songs retold. So he's pretty much saying like this was very, very memorable for those who survived, and they want to make sure that it's passed on because it was just that insane. But you can find this battle in the Silmarillion. It's from a little bit of a different perspective, so we're just going to be looking at the perspective of the people who influenced in this book specifically. So the children of Hurin, or rather just Hurin and Huor. So, like I said, the battle was the alliance of men and elves and even dwarves as well. But specifically, what we're going to be focusing on is the House of Hador and Haldir and the elves, so the sons of Fëanor, Fingon, the king of the Noldor, and Turgon, the king of Gondolin.
This, like Sam's mentioning, it's a big battle. It's the kind of the last big battle for Well, I guess the last one without the Valar helping out.
Yeah.
And so it's a big battle, and unfortunately, it does not go well for the Union of Maedhros. I will say there's a couple of good resources. Sam's power just went out.
That's why we switched it. Yeah. Whew.
Yeah, I'm glad that you switched over to your Wi-Fi hotspot. But yeah, so there's a couple of really good resources if you're curious about this. The first one is a YouTube channel called Tolkien Untangled. He does a fantastic job. He actually has a 3-part series on just this battle. So it's 3 hours worth of explaining what
Jeez.
happened in this battle. So if you really
That's
want to
cool.
dive that deep, go ahead and jump in there. It's interesting. It's been a while since I watched it, but he does a
Yeah.
very, very good job. And then secondly, as we go through this story, this is actually a website I just found. It's called lotrproject.com. It gives all kinds of maps. You can select characters and see where they're at different points in the story. You can look at all the genealogies. I don't know. I found this last night as I was doing my research to type up in the doc, and it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So yeah, there's a couple of good resources. But anyways, jumping back in here. So the battle plan of Maedhros, which is one of the sons of Fëanor, he's kind of the brains behind all this. He's getting everybody together to try to storm Angband and take on Morgoth. His idea is he's coming in, again, look at a map. He's coming in from the east of the Anfalgleith or of Angband. The Anfalgleith is that giant scorched bit of earth right in front of the mountains of Thangorodrim and Angband. And he's coming from the east, and with him is coming the dwarves of Belagost, which is one of the 2 main dwarven cities, and the Easterlings, which are a group of men that really aren't fleshed out too much. We just know that they're from the Far East. They're not of the Edain, which is the 3 houses of men, the Halatador, and Beor. It's not one of those houses. It's just men from the East, so they're the Easterlings. and he's going to march across the Enfalgleith, draw out Morgoth, and then as soon as Morgoth comes out, then Fingon and Turgon and the men of Brethil and Hurin and Hur are going to swarm in and catch them as if between a hammer and an anvil. So that's kind of the ideal battle plan that they've devised.
Have
And
you heard that song, "The Hammer and the Anvil"?
I haven't.
It's a sea shanty. I'll say that 10 times fast. I am the blacksmith singing the hammer and the anvil song. It's funny. I like it.
I
Continue.
mean, I kind of like sea shanties.
I'll send
sing
it to
that
you.
there once was a ship that put to sea. I sing that all the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, you should send that to me. That'd be fun. Um, so, and actually, at this point, they didn't know that Turgon, the king of Gondolin, was going to step forth and actually help open the. I like how Tolkien describes it, the leaguer of Gondolin. I've never heard that term, like open the leaguer. I don't, you know, really know what that means necessarily. Open the gates. Um, but I thought it was a fun way of saying that. But
Yeah.
as Fingon kind of looked at the mountains of Thangorodrim, the volcanoes just had a giant puff of smoke, and he knew that their battle, challenge was being accepted by Morgoth. Morgoth has plenty of spies and knows the councils of the allies pretty well, and so Morgoth knew what was coming, and it was his way of saying, "Yeah, let's do this." And for a hot second, Fingon, the king of the Noldor at the time, he really is starting to have some doubt. He's like, "Ah, crap, I don't know. This is it. Should we go for this?" And then unsummoned came the trumpets of his brother Turgon from the hidden city of Gondolin, and that was completely unlooked for, unexpected, and 10,000 strong came marching, the warriors of Gondolin. And I actually listened. Okay, so Sam did this part of the doc, and he wants me to try to pronounce in Elvish what Fingon yells out. So
Do it.
I did listen to it a couple of times. So let's see if I can do it. So when Fingon heard afar the great trumpet of Turgon his brother, the shadow passed and his heart was uplifted, and he shouted aloud, "Utulian Arre, Endelia Ar Antari. The day has come. Behold, the people of the Eldar and the fathers of men, the day has come." And all those who heard his great voice echoed in the hills, answered, crying, "Otulia Iliome, night is passing."
Nice. Well
So it's not
done.
terrible. I don't exactly speak Elvish, but it's kind of fun. I can just imagine like hearing that voice. I mean, it sounds beautiful. I have a hard time pronouncing it, but I'm sure if it's said properly, it
Mhm.
sounds beautiful, and I can see why that would really get the guys going.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
kind of like I mentioned, Morgoth knew the battle plan. He knew what was going on, and so his goal is to just draw out Fingon and not get caught on two fronts.
Yes, but Fingon is also quite smart as well, and so he tells his guys, "Hey, hold on, don't rush in anything yet." He actually tells them, "Beware the guiles of Morgoth, lords. Ever his strength more than it seems, and his purpose other than he reveals." So he's pretty much saying, like, you guys, we're up against a great foe, not only just strong and powerful, but also very deceiving and very cunning as well. So he tells his people to kind of stand down and hold on, but Morgoth had a plan to draw them out, and this was like I just was reading this and I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But the captain of Morgoth, he came out and he has some heralds with him, and he brings out this captive elf that he had, and this guy's name was Gelmir, son of Gulian. And so he brings it to like the front of the host of Fingon, and he brings this guy up, and he pretty much tells them, "Hey, if you guys want to save other captives that we have, then you need to come get us. Like you need to like start your attack. Otherwise, this is what we're gonna do to them." And what he does is he cuts off the arms and the legs of poor Gelmir, and he just leaves them there. So he hews off his arms and legs, leaves them there, and then they're like, "All right, see you later. We're gonna go do that to the rest of our captives if you don't come get us." And unfortunately, Gwindor, Gilmore's brother, had a front row seat to this mutilation. So, when I was reading this, I just kind of pictured the Black Captain brings you out, holds you up, and cuts off your arms and legs. And I'm watching this happen. I'm like, oh my gosh, Seth, no. And so, because of like the rage and the grief that he had for his brother, he's just like, all right, guys, I'm going. See you later. We're taking off. And so he chases down the captains and the heralds, and he actually has a little bit of a host with him too. Some people come with him on horseback, and they catch up to the captain and the heralds, and they slew him. And by doing this, he started the assault on Angband. And then the host of Fingon decides to move along with this attack, and Tolkien has a great way of describing just what this would look like. So he says, "The light of the drawing of the swords of the Noldor was like a fire in a field of reeds." I could just imagine the steel, as they raise their swords high, the glint
The
of the
sunlight
steel.
probably hits it just perfectly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and you just see 10,000 swords up there in the air as they're charging down to the gates of Angband. But the entire attack, Gwindor, Gilmore's brother, was at the front of the battle, and he was just fighting with like rage and anger and grief, and he burst through, like he was doing pretty well. Like he burst through the outer gates of Angband and slew the guards inside, and he starts beating on the gates of Morgoth, like the doors of Morgoth. And Tolkien says that Morgoth started trembling for a hot second on his throne, but it didn't take long for him to just kind of regain his cool.
Yeah, so this is kind of, if you can imagine, there's a line of the enemy, uh and Gwendor and his group of elves just go through and slay everybody in their path, and in their battle rage they don't realize what's happening, and they turn around and they're like, oh crap, we just worked so far into the enemy that we're now surrounded by the people on either side that were, they weren't in our way initially, and we cloved our way through, cleaved our way, I don't know,
Cleaved? Cloven?
we cleavened our way through, yeah, I have
No,
no
that's
idea.
not it.
Through everybody in their path, but now they're surrounded, and Fingon is trying to come from behind to catch up to him, and actually, do this assault properly. So Morgoth really was successful in screwing up the battle plans of the Noldor and of Maethros, and he really is able to just throw everything into chaos, which is perfect for him because he has more forces. He is able to wreak havoc on everything going on when there's no plan. And so Gwendor's actually taken captive, and he comes into the story later on in another kind of tragic way. So we'll see that down the road. So just keep the name Gwendor in your mind. But day 4 of this battle is really when they dubbed it the Battle of Unnumbered Tears. And this is when, unfortunately, the Easterlings that were with Maethros on the east, as they were coming in to help, Morgoth had already poisoned them. He had already turned them to his side. So they were double agents at this point. And
Yeah.
so as soon as they engaged with Morgoth's forces, as soon as Maethros and the Easterlings and the dwarves engaged with Morgoth's forces, the Easterlings turned on him and just completely routed all of the forces that Maethros had. And so the Sons of Feanor on the east side of the battle just completely took off and ran just to try to save whoever they could, because out of nowhere their allies became their enemies.
Mm.
At this point, that dragon Glaurung, who is also a huge character, he goes out of Angband and has some pretty epic dueling with the dwarves, and it was said like the dwarves were the only ones that could withstand the fire of the dragons because of their armor and the way, like their helmets and basically their craft with smithying. They were the only ones that were able to withstand the dragons. So Glaurung and the other dragons, went after the dwarves, and there's some pretty cool battles that happen with them. But at this point, unfortunately, Haldir, which was the leader of the Men of Brethil, which is the forest, the woodsmen that were on the side of the Noldor, he dies along with his men, and it's at this point when the battle is dubbed the Battle of Unnumbered Tears, because as Tolkien says, for no song or tale can contain all of its grief. And if you actually think back to a podcast we did probably near the beginning, which was with the Noldor fleeing Valinor, and Feanor and his sons swearing the oath of Feanor, and then right as they were about to leave, they heard that voice, and they think it was Mandos, but they weren't
Mhm.
sure. Maybe it was a herald. They just heard this voice, and part of the voice said, "Tears unnumbered ye shall shed." Um, and so it makes me wonder: was that a prophecy of this event, or just an inevitable outcome of their actions?
Or both. I mean, honestly, sometimes I tell like even my students, I'm like, dude, there's gonna be natural consequences to your sin or my sin. Like the things that we do, like this is just what's gonna happen. And so I think, but also there's definitely prophecy to that in the sense that this is literally called the Battle of Unnumbered Tears, and the Sons of Feanor were engaged in that, and they saw a bunch of their friends die, and they just had to run away from it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so Sons of Feanor, they flee, they run away, and at this point, the battle seems to be definitely on Morgoth's side. Like he seems to be taking the lead on this, because Fingon and the other Noldorian elves had to retreat, so they started backing across the Enfauglith, and just as the armies of Morgoth caught up to surround Fingon's host, his brother Turgon came with the army of Gondolin, and they hastened to their aid, and Tolkien says that he cut his way through the ranks of the orcs to meet his brother Fingon, excuse me, and said that the meeting of Turgon and Hurin also happened at the meeting of Fingon. So we got Turgon, Fingon, and Hurin. They all just kind of meet in the middle of this battle, and so they fought their way to that. But Morgoth had so many reserves. Like the amount of just orcs and minions he could just throw at these people is just ridiculous. So even though it seems like, okay, wow, Turgon's here, he's pushed his way through. Maybe we've got a good battle on our hands. Morgoth just like, no, I got a lot more.
And I think that really has to do with the treachery of the Easterlings, because if you think about it, Morgoth is supposed to be fighting a battle on two fronts, and that's how the Union of Mithros had planned it, was to the hammer and the anvil. And right now you've got a hammer, but you have no anvil. You've got a pillow, and so I mean you can beat them back, but there's nothing on the other side doing the same thing. And so all the forces that were supposed to be going after Mathros can now turn around and attack Fingon and Turgon and Hurin and Hur.
Yeah, definitely. So just a tough time for our heroes here. But Morgoth, like I said, had a lot of different reserves, and then he brings out Gothmog, the Lord of Balrogs. So again, we only see one Balrog in Lord of the Rings, and we see how powerful that Balrog is to take out Gandalf one on one. Now we have Lord of Balrogs, Gothmog, coming out. He's the High Captain of Angband, and he drove the brothers apart, separating Turgon and Fingon. So again, they fought together. They were next to each other. And I assume that made them stronger. Like whenever
Sure.
like you and I are together, like I feel like if fighting a battle, I'm gonna be way more strong with you next to me. I'm gonna be like fighting better with you next to me as opposed
Sure.
to apart. And so I think that's very obvious that Gothmog was trying to separate these guys.
Yep.
And so then Hurin and Hor ended up with Turgon, the king of Gondolin. So Fingon was alone. He stood alone, and his guard was slain about him. And Gothmog fought with Fingon until, I mean, this is proof to like how strong Fingon was, because he was fighting this Balrog one on one with nobody else around him, and there's just a host of Morgoth's minions attacking him. He's fighting this guy one on one, and then another Balrog comes behind and casts a thong of steel about him.
Yeah, and it kind of makes me wonder, because Fingon is Fingolfin's son, and if you remember,
Mm.
we did talk about Fingolfin a little bit. He actually went and attacked Morgoth directly, and wounded Morgoth, and so like his son is attacking this, just an all-out battle against the Lord of Balrogs. I mean, like the line of these elves is pretty impressive. And Sam's
Yeah,
power went out again.
there it is. I'm back on. Yeah, so our man Fingod's fighting for his life. He's doing the best he can, but unfortunately, uh, Gothmog has another Balrog sneak up behind him, and they capture him. And then Tolkien says that Gothmog hewed him with his black axe, and, this is interesting, a white flame sprang up from the helm of Fingon as it was cloven, and the forces of Morgoth beat him into the dust, and Rod into the mire of his blood. So it's pretty tragic death for our man Fingon. But what do you think's going on with the white flame springing up after his head, I assume, is cut off?
So Tolkien talks about as the elves, when they pass or their bodies are destroyed, they have what they call a Fea, which is equivalent to their spirit.
Hmm.
Um, and that Fea, I imagine, is probably what you know, the white flame was. It was his Fea leaving. It was his spirit leaving his body and traveling to the halls of Mandos to be judged. Um,
Gotcha.
it's interesting because Tolkien describes the same type of thing with other characters as well. Men don't have this, but other beings of Valinor do, and so if you go back and reread the Return of the King, it actually happens twice. Once with Sauron when he dies, there's like this vapor that comes up and is blown to the east,
Hmm.
um, away from the west, away from Valinor. And
Yeah.
then when Grima kills Sauron at the end of the Return of the King, it's the same type of thing. There's this. It's not a white flame, but it's like this vapor. This yeah, I don't know how I should reread it and see exactly how he describes it, but that's what it reminds me of. And again, it's blown to the east, away from Valinor. Whereas I
Yeah.
imagine um, Tolkien doesn't really describe, but I'm sure that this white flame that left the helmet of Fingon was blown to the west to be judged by Mandos.
Yeah.
What
That's
what do
really
you think?
interesting. Yeah, I was thinking maybe like something along the lines of like the flame imperishable that we've talked about,
Mhm.
Tolkien's Holy Spirit, so to speak. But yeah, I think you're right on there, like the spirit of the elves. And I think yeah, I forgot about like Sauron and Saruman and how that's described when they die. And it's interesting too that it's not a white flame, it's a vapor. It's kind of probably more distinct, like more extinguished, more uh tainted, based off of
Right.
their actions and what they've done. And obviously blowing to the east as opposed to the west is obviously really important too. But yeah, that's huh. I
It's an
love how
interesting thing.
he just drops stuff in there that we can just think about and ponder and come up with our own explanation. Like he didn't have to do that, and he could have explained it, but he's like, oh, just let them have fun with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of quick aside. It's kind of like I don't know. There's a whole storytelling method with like mystery boxes. It's like a Russian doll full of mysteries, and sometimes the whole storyline is just trying to figure out what those mysteries are. And that's kind of what Rings of Power did. It was just mystery after mystery after mystery. And
Right.
they explained some, they didn't explain others, and quite frankly, it got boring. But the way
Sure.
Tolkien does it in this story, it's really kind of beautiful because you've got the whole story in the background, but then there's these little mystery boxes that you can dive deeper into, but he doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily explain them, but it's not the main focus of the story.
Sure. I love it.
Yeah. So at this point, so Fingon's dead. He's all his elves are slain about him. All that's left, pretty much, Haldir from Brethil's dead, along with the woodsman. So pretty much all that's left now is Turgon from Gondolin, and then the brothers. And if you remember from last time's episode, they actually know each other because Huor and Hurin actually visited Gondolin. They were the only mortal men to have done that. And so at this point, the battle's lost. It's the battle of unnumbered tears. It is over. Um, and so the brothers actually spoke to Turgon, and I'll just read some excerpts here. Hurin said, "Go now, Lord, while time is, for you are the last of the house of Fingolfin, and in you lives the last hope of the Eldar. While Gondolin stands, Morgoth shall still know fear in his heart." And Turgon replied grimly and was basically like, "Yeah, but there's nobody to defend, my hidden kingdom now. Morgoth can put all his forces on finding me, and then once he finds us, there's nothing we can do." As Sam's power flickers on and off.
I just keep looking up like what's going on.
I know. It's kind of funny. Um, and Hurin's brother, actually replies, and this is really interesting if you kind of break down what he says here. He says, I say to you, Lord, with the eyes of death, though we part here forever, and I shall not look on your white walls again, from you and from me a new star shall arise. Farewell. Um,
Mm.
so Sam, like break that apart. What does that make you think of?
Yeah, when I he's saying I'm not gonna see your white walls again, so he's like I'm dead. I
Yep.
just accept my fate. I'm gonna die. And but from this story, from what's happening, from you and from me, a new star will arise. I assume that's talking about Erindil.
Yeah, exactly. His son, two. So let's see. I always, whenever I say the names without thinking them, I mix them up. So it's Huor's son Tuor is
Correct.
the
Yeah.
father of Eärendil. And so he's basically saying like it's like a prophecy from you and from me because Tuor, his son, marries Turgon's daughter,
That's
Idril
right.
Celebrimbor. And so they have a baby. That baby's name is Eärendil, who then gets a Silmaril and goes up into the sky and becomes a star. So just the
Yeah.
way it's
That's cool.
phrased, he's like, from you and from me, a new star shall arise. Like that's just so perfectly spot on. I love the connection there.
Yeah, I didn't actually get that the first time I read that, but absolutely. I mean, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And unfortunately, Maeglin, Turgon's sister son, and I love how Tolkien says that, like, Theoden refers to Eowyn as sister daughter, I love sister son and sister daughter as opposed to like niece or nephew. It's more deep. I don't know. I like it.
Yeah.
But he overheard this, and I won't get into it because it doesn't really affect this tale much. But Maeglin is a pretty prominent player in the fall of Gondolin, and it's
Hmm.
I think a lot of it stems from his jealousy of Tuor's son.
Gotcha.
So at this point, Turgon agrees and is like, all right, you're right. I hate to leave the battle, but I'll go. And he goes and flees with his captains while the brothers, Huor and Hurin, kind of are on the rear guard fighting and preventing the orcs from overwhelming Turgon. And he leaves with his captains Ecthelion and Glorfindel. And yes,
Glorfindel.
it's the same Glorfindel um, as you see in Lord of the Rings. So the brothers actually they retreated and retreated and retreated. And again, if you look at a map, it'll make more sense. But there's this river stream called the Renville, and basically once they get to that stream, they're like, all right, this is where we're putting up our fight. We're on the other side of this. They're gonna have to cross the stream to come at us, and this is where we make our stand. And Tolkien describes it as all the forces of Angband swarmed against them, and they bridged the stream with their dead. So it was just like rushing at the brothers, and eventually the stream was no longer a barrier because there were so many dead orcs and Easterlings and what other forces he had. There are just so
Yeah.
many of them slain in the river that they made a bridge. And unfortunately, this is where Huor, the brother of Hurin and father of Tuor, this is where he falls. He gets nailed in the eye with an arrow that is dipped in poison.
That happens to men often. Didn't Aragorn's dad die by an arrow
Yes,
to
he
the
did.
eye?
Yep,
Yeah.
he sure did. Yeah, it's a common way of demise for the men for some reason. I don't know why Tolkien does that.
Yeah,
Um,
that's weird.
yeah, but basically at this point it just leaves Hurin because all their guard is dead about them. His brother's dead, and it's just him left. And he actually Tolkien says that he seizes the axe of an orc captain and drops his shield and starts swinging the axe two-handed. And the axe smoked in the black blood of the troll guard of Gothmog until it withered. And so he
Dude was
was
killing people until the axe withered.
he was killing trolls, my man. He was killing trolls
That's
until the
awesome.
axe just fell apart. And Tolkien even describes like as he hewed off the hands of the orcs, they like even after they were hewed away, they would still grab onto them. And that really, makes me think of like the Burrow Downs from the Fellowship of the Ring
Right.
when the hobbits are, in the downs and the Barrow Wights come out and grab on to Frodo, and it's like just a
Yeah.
hand. That's kind of what it makes me
Ugh.
think. But
Yeah.
Um,
Creepiest part of any of his books.
yeah, exactly. And then Tolkien says he did this 70 times, and every time he swung that axe, he yelled, Aure and Tuluva, which is day shall come again. And eventually, Morgoth knew that that Hurin couldn't last, and so he takes him. He takes him as captive. He doesn't want to kill him. He wants to really, um, he wants to make a point with him, and so and he wants information from him as well. So he actually just takes him alive and brings him back to Angband. And unfortunately, um, for Morgoth, Turgon got away, and Turgon was one of his. He was scared of Turgon because Tolkien said that every time that Morgoth looked at Turgon when they were in Valinor together, a dark shadow would fall on his spirit, foreboding that in some way, in a time that yet lay hidden, doom from Turgon should come to him, and that doom obviously is Eärendil. So Morgoth doesn't know that, but that's why he wants to get Turgon so bad. So
Yeah.
that kind of wraps up the end of chapter 3 there.
Yeah, I'm watching Ariel take Pippin out into the snow. It's just really funny. He's like, I don't like this at all. This is horrible. So this chapter is really cool. We get to see a lot of dialogue from Morgoth, which is interesting because we don't get to see that a whole lot through his works. But we do get to see a lot of Morgoth's thought, like what his plans are. But here we see a lot of dialogue between him and between his captive Hurin. So this chapter starts with the creation of the Hod in Nirnath, which was a mound created by the command of Morgoth, and it contained all the bodies and harnesses and weapons of their enemies. Just a mound of humans and elves and dwarves, just to be really menacing and intimidating. And it was with great effort that the orcs did this and created a pile in the middle of the Enfauglith. But there is hope in this. Tolkien says that grass came there and grew again, long and green upon that hill, alone in all the desert, and no servant of Morgoth thereafter trod upon the earth beneath which the swords of the Eldar and the Edain crumble into rust. So again, Tolkien's saying like, hey, this is really really dark. This is really really awful. But he takes that second to be like, but there's hope in that, and
Yeah.
there will come a day where grass grows again, and all these bodies after they decay and disappear, light shines in the darkness pretty much. And it was actually the same mound that you say Rian? Is that how you say her name?
Brienne, yeah, that's how I would say
Rian,
it.
the wife of Hur and the mother of Tuor, found and just gave up her life at that point because she knew her husband was dead there and had no will to live. But then Morgoth sent the Easterlings to Dor Lomin, to the land of Hurin, to where his family is, and he shut them in, forbidding them to leave. He was like, "Hey, this is your reward for betraying your friends and fighting for me. This is all you get," which was pretty messed up. But there they plundered and harassed the women and the children of Hador's people.
Yeah, so that's basically where Turin is right now. He's still a young boy, and where his mother Morwen and the rest of their people are, and the Easterlings just run amok and get to do what they want. But Morgoth is basically like, yeah, here's your reward. You're shut in here. You can't leave.
Yeah, pretty
Which
messed up.
honestly doesn't sound like a good reward for completely turning on everybody.
Right, and then having that legacy forever.
Yeah, exactly. So at this point, Morgoth's thoughts were ever to find Turgon, and like I mentioned earlier, he feared what may come of Turgon escaping, and so he brought Hurin to himself, and he put him to slow torment, and he tried to daunt Hurin with his eyes, but Hurin would not be daunted. So at one point, after torture, like the slow torment of Hurin, he Morgoth takes him and he brings him to the Hadden and Nirnaeth and just starts a conversation with him. Um, and it's interesting because it says that Hurin the Steadfast mocked him, and then this following conversation took place. But Hurin the Steadfast is capitalized. I just found that to be pretty cool. Like he earned, because of this dialogue here, he earned the title the Steadfast.
Yeah, no, that's super neat. So Seth thought it would be a really cool idea, and I completely agree to just kind of read their conversation. It's like a page and a half, and that's the entire chapter is just their talking. So naturally, I gave Seth the role of Morgoth, the evil one, and I will be speaking on the behalf of Hurin. So this is right after he mocked him. He said, "Blind you are, Morgoth, Bauglir, and blind shall ever be, seeing only the dark. You know not what rules the hearts of men, and if you knew, you could not give it. But a fool is he who accepts what Morgoth offers," and probably implying, to the Easterlings there, like, what a bunch of fools for accepting what you offered to him.
Yeah, yeah.
You will take first the prize, and then withhold the promise, and I should get only death, if I told you what you ask.
And then Morgoth laughed and he said, "Death you may yet crave of me as a boon." And this is when he took Hurin to the Haddon and Nirnaeth, and it was new built, and the reek of death was upon it. And Morgoth set Hurin upon its top, and bade him look westward toward Hithlum, and to his wife and his son and his other kin. "For they dwell now in my realm," said Morgoth, "and they are at my mercy."
I love Hurin's response to this. He just goes simply, "You have none."
Yeah.
What mercy are you talking about? You have none when it comes to mercy. But you will not come at Turgon through them, for they do not know his secrets. Like, they don't know where Gondolin is.
Then wrath mastered Morgoth, and he said, "Yet I may come at you, and all your accursed house, and you shall be broken on my will, though you were made of steel." And he took up a long sword that lay there, and he broke it before the eyes of Hurin, and a splinter wounded his face. But Hurin did not blanch. Then Morgoth, stretching out his long arm towards Dorloman, cursed Hurin and Morwen and their offspring, saying, "Behold, the shadow of my thought shall lie upon them wherever they go, and my hate shall pursue them to the ends of the world."
This is where Hurin gets a little cocky and maybe doesn't quite understand what he's saying, but he responds with, "You speak in vain, for you cannot see them, nor govern them from afar, not while you keep this shape, and desire still to be a king visible here on earth."
Then Morgoth turned upon Hurin and said, "Fool, little among men, and they are the least of all that speak. Have you seen the Valar, or measured the power of Manwë and Varda? Do you know the reach of their thought? Or do you think perhaps that their thought is upon you, and they may shield you from afar?"
"I know not," said Hurin, "yet it might be, if they willed, for the elder king shall not be dethroned while Arda endures."
"You say it," said Morgoth. "I am the elder king, Melkor, first and mightiest of all the Valar, who was before the world and made it. The shadow of my purpose lies upon Arda, and all that is in it bends slowly and surely to my will. But upon all whom you love my thought shall weigh as a cloud of doom. It shall bring them down into darkness and despair. Wherever they go, evil shall arise. Whenever they speak, their words shall bring ill counsel. Whatsoever they do shall turn against them. They shall die without hope, cursing both life and death."
But Hurin the Steadfast answered, "Do you forget to whom you speak? Such things you spoke long ago to our fathers, and we escaped your shadow. And now we have knowledge of you, for we have looked on the faces that have seen the light, capital L, and heard the voices that have spoken with Manwë. Before Arda you were, but others also, and you did not make it. Neither are you the most mighty, for you have spent your strength upon yourself and wasted it in your own emptiness." I love that. "No more are you now than an escaped thrall of the Valar, and their chain still awaits you."
"You have learned the lessons of your masters by rote," said Morgoth, "but such childish lore will not help you. Now they are all fled away."
"This last then I will say to you, thrall Morgoth," said Hurin, "and it comes not from the lore of the Eldar, but is put on my heart in this hour. By who? I don't know.
Yeah.
You are not the lord of men, and shall not be, though all Arda and Menel fell in your dominion. Beyond the circles of the world, you shall not pursue those who refuse you."
"Beyond the circles of the world I will not pursue them," said Morgoth. "For beyond the circles of the world there is nothing, but within them they shall not escape me until they enter into nothing."
"You lie," said Hurin.
"You shall see, and you shall confess that I do not lie," said Morgoth, and taking Hurin back to Angband, he set him in a chair of stone upon a high place of Thangorodrim, and from which he could see afar from the land of Hithlum in the west, and the lands of Beleriand to the south. There was bound by the power of Morgoth, and Morgoth standing beside him, he cursed him again and set his power upon him so that he could not move from that place nor die until Morgoth should release him. Sit now there, said Morgoth, and look upon the lands where evil and despair shall come upon those whom you have delivered to me. For you have dared to mock me, and have questioned the power of Melkor, master of the fates of Arda. Therefore with my eyes you shall see, and with my ears you shall hear, and nothing shall be hidden from you.
And that is the end of chapter 3. So pretty gloomy, and what an awesome just exchange between the two. Hurin is not daunted by the power and the evil of Morgoth, and Morgoth is just angered at the fact that this guy would stand against him. He doesn't just kill him right away. He plans to torment him and give him the eyes to see and the ears to hear everything that Morgoth sees and hears. And so I can imagine just how dark and evil that would feel to be able to see everything through the lenses of Morgoth.
Yeah, and if you keep in mind the perspective as we continue down this story, at this point you don't really hear about Hurin and what's going on with him. Like, he's basically falls out of the story till the very end, and it focuses primarily on his son Turin, but on his other child Nienor as well. But as this story progresses, just keep thinking back to the fact that Turin's father and Nienor's father is watching everything that happens to them and listening to everything that's happening, and he can't do anything about it. So imagine the type of torture that Hurin is going through, because he can't die. He's not, Morgoth cursed him to the point where it's like he can't just give up his life. So for years and years, he's just stuck listening to this torture of his children.
Yeah, that's pretty dark. Whew. Well, next week we go into the departure of Turin, and so we get into his story, and that's where it starts picking up. We start understanding a little bit more about the houses of Hador, the men of Turin's household, of Hurin's household, and just get to see what's going on in Turin's mind. Now that he doesn't know what's going on with his dad, he didn't come back from war, he's going to set out on his own, so it's a very interesting chapter that I'm excited to get into. Any final thoughts?
No, I really like that exchange between Morgoth and Hurin. I read it a few times, and there's a lot of little nuggets in there that if you care to dive deeper, they might stand out to you. That's not like a hint for anything in particular, but there's just a lot of really cool things within that dialogue. A lot of cool references.
Absolutely. Well, very good. That brings us to our last segment, Gondor Calls for Aid. So we are breaking into the halls of Meadowseld and shouting, Gondor Calls for Aid. Will you, Rohan, answer? If you like the podcast, please share with fellow friends and fans. And also don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. Obviously, whatever you have to say, we will gladly and happily share it on our Tolkien podcast here. Also, email us at wekpodcast@gmail.com for any thoughts, just like Andrew did, and we'll share those as well. But what to expect next time we meet up is going to be at least chapter 4 of The Children of Hurin and the adventures of Turinbar. Well, I guess he doesn't get that name yet, but that will come later on.
A little bit later,
A little bit later. Until then, we bid you a very fond farewell.